Hello and welcome to Gabbett Media. I'm Grant Abbott and today I'm doing a 100,000 subscribers special. Thank you very much to everybody that's subscribed to me. It's an honour. I really appreciate it. I'm very surprised as well. It is just in the last year, it seems, that things have exploded. I think it's probably going to be 2.8. The fact that that's been released means that people are flocking to tutorial channels such as mine, and we're seeing a big jump in subscribers. I imagine other people are finding the same as well. But it really is exciting, and I feel very slightly famous in a niche part of the internet. Thank you very much. I've got lots of questions to answer, so I'll be looking at the screen over here and answering a few questions, and very interesting questions. It's enjoyable reading through and seeing what people might be interested in. And thank you for liking other people's questions so I know which ones are the more popular ones, as it were. I'll probably go through a few other things like what I'm planning to do in the future. There'll be a few sort of 3D tips in there, or tips on how to be a 3D artist, if you can call me a professional 3D artist. I suppose I am a professional 3D artist now. I make money through my 3D art, which feels strange to say because you see some of these brilliant people out there and I feel like I just can't compare myself to them. But it's nice to be considered a pro, and I'll try and answer your questions honestly as I can. There's a few sort of personal questions in there. I don't mind sharing a bit about myself. That's quite fun as well. I think maybe that's one of the questions is why did you, or how did you get into doing YouTube videos? And I think part of me wants to be famous, so probably. I think that's something. I'm kind of a teacher at heart, so I work in a sixth form college, and I think that's something about teachers that we do want to be noticed. There must be. We want to stand up in front of people, as well as the sort of teaching people. There is an aspect of it where we enjoy being at the front of a group of people, and YouTube is certainly that, isn't it? Anyway, on to the questions. So there's lots of questions that I'm actually going to probably come back to in other blog posts because they're quite interesting. They're more sort of what do I do about this particular aspect of 3D art, or how do I get into this particular stuff like that. So if one of your questions doesn't come up, then it's probably that it's going to come up in a blog, or that I feel like I've already answered it, but we'll see. So when did you first start learning 3D modelling, and why? Well, I remember as a kid, probably about 15 or 16, and I'd go into town. I'd get pretty bored in town, but there was nothing else to do. So this was Ipswich Town, and that's just the thing you did over the weekend. You'd go into town to meet your mates and stuff. But I'd go into WH Smith's, which is a sort of like a news store if you're not from the UK, and it had magazines, and they kind of encouraged you to just sort of stand there and read the magazine. So I did, and 3D World was the magazine that I absolutely loved, and I got kind of obsessed, thinking, do you know, I think I could maybe become a 3D artist. Wouldn't that be fun? I suppose it started a long time before that. When I was really young, I was really into art. It was a big thing with the sort of my friends and I, sort of in primary school this was, right at the beginning, and we used to love sort of drawing, and it was quite competitive. We'd sort of try and see who was the best, and I'm a competitive person. I try not to overdo it, but I can't help being a bit competitive. As long as it's fun anyway. But yeah, I'm digressing slightly, but I've always been into art, and I thought, oh, 3D and 3D modelling, 3D art, maybe that's a way I can be an artist and actually get paid and actually make it my job. Because I always think there's three things in life that you want out of it. There's three things that you want out of a job, and in the sense your job is kind of your life to a degree. That's either you earn absolutely loads of money so you don't have to work for very long and you can retire quickly, but I'm actually sort of going against that one later on in life, and I kind of disagree with it. Instead, there's either making a big difference or doing something you really love. And if you can combine those two, then that's absolutely fantastic. And what I really loved doing was sort of digital art and stuff like that. Well, just art in general, but digital art is a way of actually making money, it seems. Very difficult to make money with traditional art, I'm afraid. That's just how it is. And you can't really complain about these things, that's just how life is. So you've just got to accept them and go with the flow. So going into sort of 3D art, I thought that's the avenue I'd want to go down. And some of the types of artwork as well, the sort of gamey art and the imagination was just so cool. and then there's sort of the visual effects aspect of it as well, and I was just so excited by this. It was my type of thing, rather than this sort of very traditional sort of, I don't know, landscape watercolour or whatever it is. This was fun and exciting and interesting, and that's where I wanted to go. So I knew from an early age that I wanted to get into that, and I tried to sort of work my way into it. There was no courses that you could go on, there was no universities offering degrees in the subject, so it was very difficult to know what I was going to do to get into that. And I took a degree in media studies, which was I wanted to do a degree in film, but they only had media studies at the local college, and I didn't really want to move away, it was a bit awkward, so ended up doing media studies. And after the degree, then I started a little business with my friends, doing filming and corporate videos, sort of advertising videos and things. We got some really good contracts actually. We worked for Sainsbury's, Starbucks, I worked for BT, so we did quite well, but we couldn't really make ends meet for all four of us doing it, and these jobs were only coming in now and again, and we sort of disbanded. And I tried to carry on the sort of 3D aspect, which I was sort of focused on, but after a while I realised that I needed a sort of backup job, and that's when I fell into teaching, and I taught ICT for a while, for a long time in fact. Then I was lucky to get across into media, and I enjoyed doing media, but then I was lucky enough to get into games design. I was back to where I loved, which was doing 3D, and that was only a few years ago now, about 5 years ago. Maybe a bit longer, maybe 6 years ago. And so that's when I started really getting back into Blender and really trying hard. But so I already had a fairly okay knowledge, but that now was the time to really go for it. So I would say that's sort of the progress. So and then that's when I started doing YouTube, because I thought, well, I might as well do YouTube. So if some of my students are, I don't know, late, they can pick up the video and see what we've done in the lesson, or if they were ill or something like that, they could pick up the video. And I thought, well, maybe other people online would want to see see how to do these things. And I thought maybe I could become famous online. Here I am, I'm famous, obviously. Definitely. Anyway, that was a long story short, really, but that is my sort of lifespan into 3D. And in fact, if you look at my channel and some of the earlier videos, you can see some of the rubbish that I produced as well, but you can see that it's more media studies based, and that's how I first got into the YouTube. And then I thought, actually, I'm going to make it more sort of Blender and games design related, so you can sort of see the progression of my channel if you ever want to go back, because I think there's about coming up to 500 videos on there. So I try and post a lot, but I think it's a bit disorganized, and that's why I really want to sort out my website. That's my one of my future plans anyway. Come back to that. Let's get on to the more questions. I'll try not to go on for so long, but that was the first question, quite a long question. I'll try and be a bit quicker now. So what was your first paid project, and what did the client think of the result? My first big paid project, in fact, I had a few little projects for Starbucks and other things, and in fact, looking back, we took the Starbucks logo and kind of turned it 3D and made it rotate, and I thought it looked quite cool actually, and I think they were fairly impressed. But then I think the design team suddenly went, what the heck is this? And then suddenly we got this sort of document. Well, I think all the stores in Starbucks got this document about what not to do with the logo, and that was to mess with it in any way. So I think they were a bit annoyed, but it was only a sort of training video for their staff, so it wasn't going out on an advert or anything like that. So it's quite sort of small end, but that was one of my first paid jobs. I was really proud of this one job I had where I was making a big, huge yacht for a client, and it was the yacht cost about £42 million to make, and they were trusting me to sort of do a fly through so they could sort of sell the yacht before it was made, if that makes sense. Yeah, sort of architectural visualization basically. And I thought it was brilliant at the time, but it took me ages and hours of rendering, because this was, I don't know, this must have been over 10 years ago, probably about 15 years ago. I'm getting old now, it's a bit worrying. It's over 15 years kind of thing. Anyway, so that was a major big project, and all these things I've been very proud of at the time, and the clients have been happy with. I don't think I was sort of selling rubbish, but if you look back at them, you think, oh, that's pretty naff really, especially because software has moved on as well as my skill. I think in terms of skill level, you just get faster with these things. You usually get a little bit better, but the speed is the thing that you get kind of good at. So that sort of Yeah, anyway, moving on. What do you encourage other 3D artists, starters to do first, and how to get better at creating? Always start with low poly work. That's what I always think. And low poly is a design style. It's just getting used to breaking objects down into smaller shapes. Do that for as long as you can bear it before going on to anything detailed. You'll get lost really quickly in the world of 3D if you don't start off small and go up in small increments. I mean, you can get into things like sculpting if you like, but the basic low poly work, build little scenes out of low poly characters and low poly worlds. But that's the true art of 3D, is trying to think about objects and break them down so that into their minimalist forms, and low poly work really does that. You see some amazingly brilliant artists out there. Is it Polygon Runway, I think, or Polygon Runaway or something like that? If you check out his work, I think he does some tutorials mainly on Instagram, but have a look at those because you'll see what I mean. And just look up low poly dioramas. They look fantastic, and you really see an artist at work there. Do you write your ideas down when living life? Yes, I have a huge spreadsheet of to-do list, and it's got different colours for how important it is, and there's going to be things in there that I never get to, but I like to write them down, and hopefully one day I'll return to them. Like there's make a game is probably in there somewhere, and make this type of model, make this, and just different ideas. And occasionally if I'm just suddenly think, what am I going to do with myself, which hasn't been for about, I don't know, 4 months now that I have even looked at that sort of particular slide in my document in my Google Docs, but every now and again I'll look at that and think, actually I'll give that one a go now. And sometimes I look to that for tutorials as well. I have a big Pinterest board of ideas as well. I do love Pinterest for that, putting things on boards and sort of storing ideas, I feel like, and storing inspiration. So Pinterest is a big thing for me. Yeah, it's good fun. And is it necessary to read boring anatomy for sculpting? Yes, is the answer to that one. There's going to be boring things in 3D. Get good at the things you're not good at. That's what I say. It's a silly philosophy of mine, but if you work on your weaknesses, you'll become a more rounded person, a more rounded artist, and you'll be more employable, and you'll be a better artist. Those people who are really good at painting shoes, I don't know why I said shoes, they can only paint shoes, so if they're asked to do, I don't know, a landscape, they can't do it. But surely if you can paint a this is a rubbish example, but if you've got a varied skills and someone says, oh, can you paint this? You think, well, I can combine my knowledge of landscapes, my knowledge of shoes, and I can come up with a shoe landscape. Well, stupid like that. I know, but the more you know, the more chance you have of being a more rounded artist and getting those clients as well. In a way, it is about getting clients as well as creating great art, because that sustains us. And there's a marriage there, isn't there, between being sort of just doing jobs and doing fun stuff. Can we combine them in some way? And that's what I'm always looking for. Is there a particular feature you're missing in Blender, and which areas of Blender are still lacking? Well, yes. Really glad they're working on the sculpting tools. That's awesome. And it looks like we're getting a bit closer to ZBrush. Or ZBrush. I always call it ZBrush because I'm British. But there's other tools where we could really do with a jump. I think the node setup is fine, but when you look at Substance Painter and you look how easy it is to create things, it'd be nice if we went a bit in that direction or had the option. I know people are doing add-ons, and there's some great add-ons, and I've talked about them in the past, but it'd be nice if that was integral in Blender, and there was just for beginners to be able to come in and quickly create, it becomes more an artist tool than a techie tool, and I think that's important for anybody just coming into the program. You want to be able to just create, so I would say definitely in the texturing tools. Also the painting tools, I do use Blender for painting, but I feel like there's a lot better out there. I don't know that, but as I'm painting, I'm thinking, I imagine in other programs you wouldn't have this problem. And over time I've learned how to get over those, but it would be helpful if they were a bit easier. Have you ever gotten to the point and almost gave up on 3D? If you did, how different do you think your life would be if you gave it up? I suppose I almost gave up when I sort of went into teaching, because teaching has a habit of overtaking your life. And I thought, well, I'll just do teaching as a backup option and do 3D on the side, but I just couldn't do that. It was impossible. It was a very hard job teaching. I don't want to whine, get the violin out, but it is tough. You ask any teacher, it's really tough. But I'm very lucky in the teaching that I've got. I'm part-time at the moment, so I'm able to juggle both. And also my college is really supportive of what I'm doing, so I think they appreciate what I'm trying to do with this channel. So well done Suffolk 1 or it's called generally 1, but 1 sixth form centre in Ipswich, but some people call it Suffolk 1, that's its original name. So thank you very much to you guys. Not that they ever watch my videos, to be honest. They've got better things to do. They're all too busy, they're all teachers. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh yes, so whilst teaching I almost gave up on 3D, but every now and again I'd sort of dip into it and take on a job or two. And I really wanted to do that more than teaching, and I'm kind of coming across to doing it again, but teaching at the same time. So I'm very lucky to be able to do both those things. So yes, I think my life would be very different, and I don't think I'd be as happy if I wasn't doing 3D, because it's nice to be able to create in your life. And also, dare I say it, but it's important, I think, to have something else apart from your teaching job. If you are a teacher in the UK, well, it might be the same in other countries, I don't know, but you need something else because it can take over your life. Anyway, that's a slight aside there. How many hours a day do I have to practice if I want to be a mind-blowing Blender artist? As many as you can. As simple as that. 10,000 hours they talk about, and it's a good rough guide to becoming a pro. So once you've done 10,000 hours, you might be a pro if it's good quality practice. So you're not just painting shoes. You'd be really good at shoes, but maybe not very good at everything else. And also work on your weaknesses. So don't always do hard surface. Don't always do texture painting. Don't always do sculpting. Do it all. Is my advice anyway. How many hours do you practice Blender a day? Well, in terms of practice, I don't practice much. I just tend to do, because I've got lots of sort of freelance jobs. And weirdly, I'm sort of practicing whilst doing YouTube videos. I think, well, this might be quite fun, and do a little test. I think, oh, it's going okay actually. I'll turn that into a video. And sometimes my videos, you can probably tell, I'm kind of making it up as I go along. And occasionally I have to cut a big chunk out thinking that really didn't work and go back. Try and leave my mistakes in, as I'm sure you know. But in terms of practice, I don't get much time to sort of experiment with things, which is a bit of a shame, and I probably need to cut back on other things so I can experiment more and just have fun with it, because that's what it's all about. So in terms of hours that I'm spending on Blender each day, I would say on average it's maybe about 4 hours a day. I know that doesn't sound much, but actually when you break it down, that's every single day. So you can become as talented as me, if you can call it talented, with 4 hours a day practice for how long? I suppose really seriously for the last 6 years, and on and off for the last 15. I mean, some days it's more than that. When I'm doing Sculpt January, for example, that's goodness knows how long I'm spending on the program. Tell us about your personal life. Do you have any girlfriend? I have a wife, and we've been married for almost 20 years. It's coming up to 20 years in February the 12th. Just for a second there. So yeah, 20 years it will be in February, and happily married. She's a teacher as well. I suppose I ought not to talk about her life so much. Interestingly, she doesn't watch my videos, so she won't know. But yeah, she teaches in a school as well. She teaches RS, it used to be called RS, but I think it's philosophy and religion now. So religious studies it used to be, but philosophy and religion, and a bit of history now. And she's away in Cumbria at the moment. Anyway, that's my personal life. I think there's other questions about my personal life in here as well, and which I don't mind talking about. I kind of, like I say, I must have some narcissistic tendencies which I want to tell everybody about my life in some way. I don't know. What entertainment inspires your work? Movies, games, etc. And what got you into 3D and how you keep motivated? I think I generally get inspiration from everywhere, but I do, on Instagram, I follow lots of sort of 3D accounts, and I just like flicking through. Specialization, I think, is one that I quite enjoy. I do like that stylized style, which is sort of World of Warcraft and that sort of thing. I just find that great fun. It's quite hard, I think, to mimic. but great fun. And I like Pinterest I will just look through the art on Pinterest. I don't find ArtStation as good for finding art, but maybe that's just me. But I think it's better for the quality of art sometimes than Pinterest. But there's some great stuff on Pinterest, and you can just go through, skimming through, and pin things on your boards for ideas and inspiration. It's great. Films, obviously. What did I watch recently that I was really impressed with? Oh, the Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse. Oh, that's just brilliant. Yeah, that was really great. And then, I'm sure there's been other things as well. Alita, Battle Angel. I didn't like the film that much, but the animation, whoa, it's just amazing, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, so lots of things like that. Inspiration comes from everywhere though, doesn't it? And I find that, yes, it's easy to keep motivated by looking at that inspiration, but it can actually be a little bit depressing as well, because you look at it and you think, oh, I'll never get there. That's just impossible. And sometimes you sort of worry that, is my software not going to get me to this point? Because they say they use Maya, ZBrush and Substance Painter. ZBrush, sorry. So how can I possibly get there with Blender? But I think it is possible, and it's getting closer each day. So well done to the Blender team. Not that they watch these videos either. Where am I up to? I know there are probably better questions, but what is the baseline for general employment and production? Be it mobile games, modelling for local ads or something. In fact, I'm going to answer that in another video. I should have left that out and put that. But that's a good one for another video. There's some great ones for just general blogging about freelance work and things. If you're interested in that, then comment below. And with more questions, and I can try and put them into blogs. So I would like to do more blogging. Why do you give your tutorials away for free? That's a really good question. Because I'm narcissistic and want people to love me. I think it must be. Now, I think maybe deep down that's what it's about. I just like the fact that people like me. So giving stuff away for free, it feels like people like me. And all these 100 subscribers, way, people love me. Maybe that's what deep down is what it is. It's like likes on Instagram for your selfies and things. Maybe this is my equivalent. But I think also Blender's free. And it's a way for me to give back to the community, is what I tell myself anyway. And I think I could have probably gone down the paid route, and I don't disrespect anybody else for doing that, because I'm not really earning a lot out of this. I do get a bit of income from YouTube. I do get income from other things as well. I get sent free stuff, which is nice, but I do have to sort of make a video on it, and it does take at least a couple of hours to do the video. So you could sort of see that as payment, but then I will sell that piece of equipment on, so graphics tablets and things. And also I do get freelance work through my YouTube channel. I don't think Atlas Empires would have found me, the freelance gig that I'm doing now, if it hadn't been for my YouTube channel. In fact, they wouldn't have. They contacted me through the YouTube channel. Well, because of, I should say, not through, and they emailed me, but you know. It's a way for me to express myself, get out there, and it's bringing enough income for me to slowly cut back on my teaching, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm going down to 1 day a week after Christmas, all going well and all going to plan. So I'll just be only doing that little bit of teaching, and so I can do more of this and maybe build up a bit more of an income, so it's sort of comparable. Because I'm not big about money. I think everybody needs to survive, but it's so much more important, life, quality of life, and enjoying things, being creative. So that's why my tutorials are free. And yes, I think I could have probably cashed in and gone down the paid for route. I'm not saying that will never happen, because you never know what your circumstances might be. But I think I'm earning enough this way, through just a bit of advertising and sort of donations. Thank you very much to all those that have donated, and Patreons, thank you very much. Through that, I think there's just enough for me to survive, and with a bit of savings. Not that I would like to get a new computer, but I can't justify it at the moment. I'm still on 4th gen Intel. Oh well, anyway, I've got a video about my kit and it hasn't moved on. I do have a really nice Mobile Studio Pro, which I use almost every day at the moment. So yeah, anyway, moving on, my sob story about money. But I'm quite comfortable doing this and giving it away for free, that I'm happy doing that. So Where am I up to? Oh yes, are you considered a kind of 3D rock star at school or college? Would have loved to learn from you as a teenager. Well, thanks, but I'm not, no. I think a few students have heard that I think students know that I've got so many subscribers, and it's kind of a joke between me and my colleagues about I'm famous, but I'm obviously not. It's not really a huge big deal. I'm not famous, am I? Famous in this tiny niche. So they don't know much about Blender. My students who come into the Games 9 class, I think a couple of them may have gone onto my site. I think one of my colleagues overheard one of them say, "That's him." So they recognised me. That's about as far as it goes in terms of rock star. It's certainly not. I make a joke about it, and I'm always saying, and you know, there's a great YouTube tutorial channel which you can all go to, and I always say Gabbett Media, click on the adverts as my sort of silly catchphrase. Not that it actually makes any difference if you click on an advert. I don't think that actually affects anything. But yeah, so I always sort of make a joke about it. But I think my students are more sort of, oh, not this again, rather than any sort of rock star status. If you do not agree with this, oh, hang on, I've skipped one. Nope. Do you think free or paid 3D modeling software will be dominant in the future? I personally think free software is what they're saying. And the mainstream and paid ones will either turn mostly free or die, because that's what's happening to game engines. That's an interesting question, and it's a good one for debate, I think. Generally, I think there'll always be paid for software out there. I think Maya will hold that title as the industry standard for a while yet, but Blender is doing very, very well, and it's extremely exciting. Far into the future, who knows? I'd like to think one day, far into the future, that all software will be free. It's my utopian society dream, but it seems unlikely, doesn't it? We'll see. I think that one I'll go more into with a blog at some point. But you've got to remember that most of the industry professionals don't use Blender. So will they want to suddenly swap? They're massive studios and they can afford the licenses, so they're not going to swap and train all their staff on Blender instead. That will cost more than the software changes. So I think we're stuck with Maya as industry standard for now. But we are seeing the death of a few. I mean, what was it, Lightwave? There used to be, I haven't heard of that for a while. 3D Studio Max, I'm seeing lots of comments on my, in the comments of my videos saying I've moved from 3D Studio Max and I'm loving Blender. So it's happening, it is happening. Just what do you do in life and what inspires you to make YouTube videos? I've probably answered that a fair bit. Also, what would you give as advice for someone who wants to start a big project like a short film or a mobile game? Start off small and grow. Do little projects first, small projects, don't go all in, otherwise you'll burn out. I think is my best advice. Sometimes it's great to just go for it, but I try and approach everything as a learning experience, and if you want it to be a final finished product, you get nervous of working on it and ruining it. So treat everything as if you're practicing. That's what I would say. I'm not sure if that's great advice, but that's kind of how I treat things anyway. I basically do what you do, except I teach at diploma degree level, part-time, and do illustration, animation and modelling freelance. I'd like to ask, have any of your students taken up the mantle and done really well with 3D as a lecturer? As a lecturer, I love hearing about past students who achieved out there in the world. Yes, a couple of my students. I don't think I can really take credit for their success either. Alfie Vaughan is one. I'll try and remember to put his channel in the description because he runs a YouTube channel and he's doing really well. In fact, I'm getting him to come and talk to the students at my college about how well he's done. He works at the Mill in London on visual effects for things, games and films and all sorts. And he was just really motivated. I think that is the thing. I see lots of students, and I've taught lots of students, the ones who do well are the ones who are motivated. It's not something I can offer. All I am is a facilitator to learning, and maybe a little bit of a motivator. and I can guide them in the direction, but they have to teach themselves, and that's what Alfie did. He learned a bit from me, but he went out and learned, because it's all on YouTube. Everything that we teach as teachers, you could go and find, or you could go and read in a book. So I sometimes wonder what I'm doing, and that's why I'm very interested in the development of YouTube and how I'm a teacher now on YouTube. And what am I doing in the classroom? It's just motivating, and I suppose one-to-one it does help. You can just ask a question and someone's there to answer it instantly as a teacher. But for the most part, you can pick up a lot of stuff from YouTube. I would suggest that 90% of my time in the classroom, the student could be looking that up on YouTube, or could be following tutorials on YouTube, generally speaking. I'm not sure if that, I haven't obviously looked into that, it's not a study, but that's my rough opinion. So, I'm digressing slightly, and I'm probably going, how long have I been recording for? 30 minutes, so this is a long one. Hopefully you're still here, but I think my average views for my videos is something like, average minutes watched is something like 4 minutes, and then you do an hour-long video or something, and then you find out that people are watching for an average of 4 minutes. It's just, you think, oh dear. But I appreciate all those that stick through and watch the whole thing. That's amazing. So if you're still with me, well done. You can comment in the below and say, I'm still with you, Grant. I like that. It's always nice to see as well. But yes, there's been so Alfie Vaughan's one. Madison Allen, was it? I can't remember his last name, but he's got his own YouTube channel as well, and he did really well. He did sort of 2D work, so again, not much input from me. He was just really into it, and I used to just give him bits of advice and yeah, that's all it was. Get bits of advice and the odd tip here and there, but that was it. He did it all himself, and he used Adobe Animate to animate his characters, and he's done really well. I can't remember exactly what he's doing, but I'll have to ask him. Also, I find it very frustrating to work under a harsh NDA, non-disclosure agreement, when the project folds and you're left with work you can't show. What's your take on that? A lot of non-disclosure agreements allow you, after a certain amount of time, to put them in your portfolio. So maybe check that, or contact them. If the project's folded, they might let you be okay with showing it as portfolio work. What's your take on that? That's just life. You have to roll with the punches and go with the flow. I'm sure you would have rather taken on that work with a non-disclosure agreement than not take on the work. I probably should have blogged this for another time. You put this in another blog, but hopefully that's answered that question. Yeah, there's frustrating things about working in the 3D industry. There's things where you'll just be repeating the same task over and over. If you're in a games industry, in a big company that says you'll just be doing the same things, or in a visual effects you'll just be rotoscoping for hours. But that's what we do. But there's also amazing projects that we're involved in as well. And when you see the end result, it's just fantastic. So yeah, roll with the punches, as they say. Did you reach out for game industry work, Atlas Empires in brackets, or with your YouTube presence they came to you? Yep, with my YouTube presence, luckily enough. I've very rarely reached out. I did try when I was first getting into 3D work, sites like Fiverr, I think it was, and can't remember what the other one, Upwork, that was it. Didn't have much luck. I did get a couple of contracts, but they were really low paid, and I was doing the contracts to try and get accredited sort of thing, and to get feedback, positive feedback, which I got, but then it just wasn't worth it. I think I probably got paid about 20p an hour for the work I was doing. So you're going to be competing against people who are willing to work for as little as that. So I'm very lucky that I've got this YouTube channel where people will come to me for freelance work. I think that's the main thing, is getting out there with your work, and I'd probably avoid sites like Fiverr, Upwork and those sort of things. Really hard to make a living from. A more personal question here, do you like potato waffles? I'm sure it's a joke question, but interestingly, I have a very strict diet, which is a bit of a strange one. I suffer from quite a lot of allergies. I get hay fever really badly in the summer, and I occasionally get eczema, only tiny bit of eczema, just on my arm, just here, and it happens when I'm a little bit stressed. But since I gave up dairy, I don't get that anymore. I gave up wheat as well, and the big one is I gave up refined sugar, so I don't eat any sugar. I'd eat fruit sugar, but that's not refined, so no sort of wheat, pasta, rice. The list is endless, and I was thinking about going vegan recently, but that was quite tough because I had an allergic reaction to sort of beans, so that wasn't a good one. But I think one day I will hopefully go vegan, because I think ethically it's a good thing, but I also think health-wise it's good. And the reason I say this, because it does relate to 3D artistry, is my mind state has been much better since I changed my diet, and I think giving up sugar was a major thing. I think in terms of my energy levels, they're just balanced. My thought processes are balanced, so I don't have highs and lows. Because, you know, some people drink a can of Red Bull and go for it mad, but then you've got that sort of 4 hours where you're absolutely dead, and you get depression like that as well. If you get sort of too much ups and downs, it gives you that sort of depression, burnout, all those sort of problems. I'm sure our diets, especially in the West, are responsible for those things. And giving up sugar has made me much more stable, and I'm able to do a lot more work without getting exhausted and tired out. Hence why I'm able to balance teaching, YouTubing and Atlas Empires at the same time. I'm sure it's because I've got a good diet, and exercise is important as well. But I won't bore you with all that. If you really want to know, then you can comment below, but I can't imagine many people do. Do you have a roadmap for the foreseeable future? Yep, I'll come up to that in a bit. Do you come up with content ideas based on current interest? Yeah, that's a good point. Do you come up with content ideas based on current interest and project demands? Well, yes. Atlas Empires, for example, I'm able to do the models, screen record, and then do a commentary over the top. So I'm kind of combining YouTube with Atlas Empires work that I'm doing. Although I don't get many views on the Atlas Empires work that I'm doing, so in a sense it's not really that useful doing the YouTube. It's a tough one really, because in one way you're a slave to the views of the audience, so I'm always monitoring, thinking, oh, that video did well, that one didn't, and it's difficult sometimes to know why. So you can't really help as a YouTuber but look at those views and want to give the audience what they want. So I do, yeah, I try and pitch things in the right level, but if I start a course I always want to finish it, but it can be tough if you see the figures go down. You're thinking, well, hardly anybody's watching this, but I suppose I'll finish it anyway. But it's difficult as a YouTuber knowing exactly what to put out. And I suppose other YouTubers, other big YouTubers like Blender Guru or Zacharias Reinhardt's another one. Flip Normals are very good. There's lots of CG Geek. J&M does some great stuff as well. Anyway, I'm just going listing them. Born CG is it as well. But all those good ones, those big ones, they're much less often. J&M does quite a lot and quite often. He's sort of similar to me, I would say. But the others have sort of very small amount and big sort of gaps in between. That's not right there, but a smaller amount and big gaps in between, and they get much more views on their videos, and I probably ought to be doing that. But I like to pitch myself as something different, hence why I do these sort of blog type things as well. So there's something different out there on offer, because I think they often sort of focus on sort of very specific things, and I try and be a bit more wide-ranging and a bit more about the industry, which I think is missing a bit. So I try and pitch myself as something different. So yes, I try and match my things up. So I try and do that as well, even for college. So if I've got a project that I think that students will be doing soon, I could do a video on it that sort of matches up, and then I'm combining all of them, sort of thing. That's how I try to work. So trying to be efficient. How emotionally invested do you get when working on a project? What kind of effect would it have on you if a game you're currently designing assets for doesn't do so well? That's a very interesting question. I don't get that emotionally invested, but it was really exciting recently when someone showed me images of the game Atlas Empires, and there were my models in there. I thought, wow, I am a game artist finally. After all these years, I've actually seen one of my models in game. Someone else has shown me bits and pieces, but it's not quite the same, as this is probably, well, there's a fair big budget for this game, so I feel like it's going to do fairly well. And it's a good idea, I think. So I do feel like it's going to do well. So I have got a bit more invested in this one in terms of emotionally. But I always see as everything I'm doing, it's hours that I'm putting in. It's like the 10,000 hours, and it's practice. I'm moving on and becoming a better artist. So I'm able to just switch off and think, next project, here we go. And if no one wants to hire me, I'll do my own game. If do my own short film, all these sort of things. That's how I think. Moving on. It's just exciting to be like that, and I'm lucky enough to be able to be like that, where I don't have to rely on the certain income. But yeah, I think that makes sense. You focus on 3D's practical application and art as a means to a fulfilling career. Got any advice for those of us on the other end who take up 3D modelling as a relaxing hobby? I can't see how 3D modelling could be a relaxing hobby. No, it is, isn't it? It's like a painter going out doing some fun paintings. Yeah, that's a really tough one, because I always want to combine my hobbies with my life and make them my life. And yeah, so I struggle to sort of have hobby, although I suppose I do a lot of sport, and that's definitely a hobby. But then I practice that sport all the time. So I'm quite into football, and my family's always saying I'm too old to play football, but I still play football a lot, still get injured a lot, injured all the time. But I will go out and practice as often as I can, just to get fresh air for one. When I'm walking the dog, I'll take my football with me. I look a bit weird, a 41-year-old man going around kicking a football around on his own. Probably looks a bit odd, but I like to practice, and I like to be good at it. I suppose that's with everything I do. I want to be good at it. It's just it's probably a character flaw rather than a character trait, but that's just who I am. Why do you love sculpting more than any kind of modelling? Yeah, that's because it's the most creative. It's so organic, your brushstroke, you've got so much control. I think that's why. Hard surface is very sort of techie, I would say, and it's almost rigid, and it's sort of modifiers, and you get there through the program's complexities, whereas sculpting, it's just you and the brush, almost. Which aspect of modelling would you say you're least developed at? I think the hard surface modelling is my least developed. And in terms of working with a modifier stack, if that makes sense, I find that quite tough to get my head round. And I don't practice it much because I don't get a lot of call for it. So it's one thing I'd like to work, because I like to work on my weaknesses. That's one thing I'd like to really dive into. I do lots of fun stuff like ray guns and rockets and things, and they're simple hard surfaces. But when it gets to the more detailed, when you want sort of crevices on top of booleans and all that sort of thing, and get that modifier stack working seamlessly, which never seems to, then that's where I need to work on my skill level. Will you be releasing any more exercise videos, and have you given any thought to repurposing some of your older videos for 2.8? Yes, I will be releasing more, and yes, I will be repurposing a lot of my more successful videos for 2.8. Can you do illustrations or 2D animation? Yep, I do that. I think it's really important to work on your 2D art, especially if you're into the organic modelling like I am, and you're doing things like sculpting. But I can honestly say that if an artist comes along, it happens on my YouTube channel, or I see their Instagram post where they tag me in and say, thanks to Grant Abbott, I was a 2D artist and I'm just branching out into 3D, and their work is really great. It really is, and you can see that they're a 2D artist, and it's influenced their 3D work. It makes a massive difference. They understand colour, they understand composition, and they understand how objects work together, and that's quite a big plus. I'm not saying you can't be a 3D artist if you don't have 2D artist skills. I think that makes sense. You can just be a 3D artist, but having those 2D skills is a major plus, even if you're doing things like hard surface modelling, because you understand form, you understand light. It makes a big impact. So good artists, good 2D artists will make good 3D artists eventually, once they get used to the software, if they ever do. And I've done 2D animation, yep. I've done some contracts with 2D animation as well. They were good fun, but I'm better at 3D. And I'm not an amazing artist, but I'm working on it. Work on your weaknesses. How long can you keep being this awesome? Oh, there's no end to my awesomeness. Thanks very much. I left that one in there. I've sort of copied and pasted them because I just wanted someone saying I'm awesome. That is why I do YouTube videos for free, so people will say I'm awesome. Is 2D skill a plus to it? Oh, I've already mentioned that one. Okay, so that's most of the questions after 46 minutes, so well done if you're still with me. The future of my channel is what some people will be asking, or what's next anyway. Well, I've got to sort my website out. I've got 2 people working on my website. They have taken ages. Please hurry up if you watch this. They will never get this far. But I'm really hoping that will happen soon, and because my website needs organising in a big way, and I want things to be more like a course. What I wanted when I was a learner was to go onto a site and it to be mapped out for me, and those resources to be free. That's a major thing for me, is there'll be no barriers to entering the 3D world. And money shouldn't be a barrier in life, but it always is. It's just how life is. But I would like it that there's the opportunity for people to be able to get out there and do 3D. I know they've got to buy a computer, so their money's still a barrier, but I think you know what I mean. So I'm going to get my website sorted, and I'm going to work on that. I am, like I've said, I'm doing less college work. Cutting down in a couple of weeks I'll be cutting down one day, and then after Christmas another day, so I'm starting to sort of cut back, and I'll be doing more of this sort of thing, more freelance work as well, but I'm hoping that will give me more time and a more balanced life as well, because it is a bit hectic at the moment. So there's that. I would like to do more training courses, so there's step-by-step approaches, generally more organised, but I'd also like to do this sort of blogging, because I think I want to see about people's freelance work and how they're getting on, but not many people want to share that. So I want to be open about things that I do as much as I can be anyway. Yeah, I think that makes sense. The one thing I really would like to do, and if you're still with me, then you'd probably be interested in this, which is live broadcasting. So I don't know much about it because I'm actually not a gamer myself. I love to play games, but there's no way I've got time, and they're so addictive because they're so much fun. So I'm not a gamer, but I would like to do sort of Twitch live streams, or maybe YouTube live streams. I'd like to diversify, because I think that's important, because you never know how long YouTube will last. So I think it's important to move with the times, and so live broadcast is something that I've been considering. I think generally as a last point, because lots of people have been talking about developing as a 3D artist, what advice would you give? My last and final tip of this video, persistence is probably the most, persistence is probably more important than talent. So you might be very talented, you might have a bit of skill in art, but if you are not willing to work at it, you won't be the best, and you won't be in the top echelon. Is that the right word? But even more important than that is the ability to be self-reflective above all else, self-critical, not overly, and to be able to take criticism. I've seen some talented people, but they clammed up when they got that criticism, and you know they're not going to make it. They'll be good for this time, but they won't move on. You need to be self-critical, and you need to take criticism well, and accept it. And if people give you bad feedback, still listen and learn. You don't have to take it on board, and you may think, actually, I'm not sure that's good advice, but you will find that out later. But always take it on board and always listen to the criticism. That's my parting thought. Thanks for watching, and I'd be really shocked if there's many people that got this far. So we'll have a hidden code. If you could comment below, we'll say I got to the end, Grant. That won't be a hidden code at all, will it? Because that'll be obvious. What am I talking about? I'm going off on one now. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I very much appreciate all the subscribers. I'm sure only about 5 of them are watching now. But thank you very much. I'm loving life and really enjoying doing a YouTube channel, so I'm here to stay for a lot longer. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.